exploit?
Yes, well, the characters from Coronation Street I mentioned, they were incredible characters. I wouldn't say I'd like to consciously take someone else's character. I'd like to work my own out, because they've got to work in to the whole structure of the thing. And so, you know, as I said with the Jim Robinson character, it started off as a widow and ended up as a widower, because you've got to feel free just to move them around until you get your...
So they're all bits of the jigsaw, and it'll work somehow.
True, yes.
Now, the other thing that has happened over here that I wonder if there's any kind of scope for, saying something like Neighbours, is that there have been spin-offs. Brookside has given us spin-offs, and some police series have given us spin-offs. Would that be a possibility, do you think? Would those characters work outside Ramsay Street?
Oh, yes, and that happens a lot in America. You know, they do... they take characters and
soap bubbles, they call them, I think, don't they?
Soap bubbles, do they? I don't know. But yes, there's no reason why not. And it's just that, you know, we're so involved in doing what we're doing that we haven't time to think that way. But it would work, no doubt about it. But then you've got to bring in all the other extraneous characters and weave them into their lives.
Now, you've mentioned that Neighbours, for example, doesn't tackle drugs, it's not a particularly angry show, it's a positive show, and that has led some critics to say that it's actually bland. Does that kind of criticism hurt you?
No. Oh, come on. I mean, I've yet to meet the critic who has given me anything, you know, and I've done 5,000 episodes of serials in Australia. I did 2,000 over here, with no help from any critics. All you got was abuse, but that doesn't concern me. But when you say bland, that isn't strictly, I mean, that isn't right, because in Neighbours, we tackle in our own way alcoholism. You know, you've got Madge working in a pub, and if a man gets drunk, she'll whip the car keys off him, which immediately gives you the conflict, which is the lifeblood of the serial. And then the next day he comes back and apologises and says, you know, you're quite right, even though he threatened to have a fire the night before, and then he falls in love with her and all that sort of thing. But so all that is going on, you know. We had a young boy who was an alcoholic, but I wouldn't do that to my central characters, because they can't be an alcoholic this week and something else next week. So we needed a boy who would remain an alcoholic, because you do, you know. So again you say, why are we doing this? And if they wanted to take Charlene as an alcoholic, say, for instance, I said no to that. You can't do that. But her best friend could. And so you do...
So you'd have all the juice of Charlene's reaction to it,
that's
Charlene
true.
helping...
Yes, and the people listening to them, you know. You know, we did malnutrition in old age pensioners over here in Britain, because we were asked to do it.
Oh, this is on Crossroads,
On Crossroads. And again, with eyewitness, you would probably say, this is what you should eat and this is what you shouldn't eat, and you're pointing into the lens, you know, and lecturing, which is what you should be doing, and stating the facts. Whereas I would dramatise it and romanticise the problem to the extent that old people would watch, and I had an old man and an old woman, and he was living on boiled sweets, which was the great problem in those days, probably still is. And they used to meet in the park, and one day he didn't turn up. So she went looking for him, and he lived in an attic, and he was unconscious. And so the woman old age pensioner said to him, what are you eating? And she found the boiled sweets, and she said to him, you're a silly old fool, you shouldn't be eating that.
Now, pull the sleeves up and cook
I'll cook you something. And so she prepared the meal, and the people sitting at home, the pensioners sitting at home, are being entertained, but we're delivering that message to them that this really is what they should be doing, because he got up, got better, and they walked off into the sunset together, you know, we're happy ever after. Now, again, that's that conclusion.
So there's a kind of implicit positive message, but you're not lecturing the audience.
No.
They're sucked into
and so your critic will say, oh, this is bland, but they're really probably only watching one episode anyway, if that. So it's important that the viewer is aware that on occasions we do social comment. I mean, pollution. In Ramsay Street, the streets are all clean. You know, if something's on the footpath, the kid will pick it up and throw it in the bin. And but that's just action, you know. And coincidentally, we are letting people see that we like a clean street. And
in the same way that coincidentally no one smokes on camera in
no one
Neighbours.
smokes. No one smokes, and nobody notices it. Nobody misses it, you know. And a villain would smoke. But and I mean, then again, you're going into another area altogether, where you're saying everybody who smokes is a villain, which is wrong. So you've got to say, why is this person smoking? But it adds to his character. But they don't smoke, and very few people drink in the show. They have a glass of wine with them.
No tinnies that we always associate with.
They do have a tinny, but it's it isn't. We don't go to extremes with it.
So no great booze in ockers or whatever the image
No,
over here.
the thing about it at the moment is it is much more moral than it ever was in serials, and that isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's proved by the incredible success of the programs that this is what people like to see. A family would like to sit down and relax with their kids and know that there's no shock horror coming up. There's nothing there that is going to be dreadfully embarrassing. You know, but we have had a kid take a girl to a motel room, you know, for a night, and he ended up walking out on her because she admitted to him she'd already slept with another boy. So again, he was being so moral and a hypocrite.
Morally immoral.
Yes, and so you touch on that, but you don't need to go into the sleazy stuff that we were doing some years ago.
Does the success of something like EastEnders surprise you then? Because that does tackle a lot of very confrontational issues head on.
No, because I've done all that, but I just decided I'd done that, and it was time, and we're in danger of just rehashing stuff we've done before, and so I got off it. And but no, it doesn't surprise me at all. And EastEnders is beautifully done. You know, it's they do a tremendous job, and there is a place for it. But I'm giving a personal point of view of where I feel some things are best left as documentaries and current affairs, and that's your area, and Happy Ever After is my area.
Now, do you think soaps are going to change? We've seen a lot of changes in society in the 80s in England and Australia. Are soaps going to change in the 90s to respond to that?
Yes, I think they'll become probably more moral and more natural in their approach, and I think you'll find this will happen in America, because the Americans are absolutely fascinated by shows like Neighbours. They think this is quite remarkable, and I haven't had the heart to say, well, this is really Andy Hardy and his family all over again. You know, Mickey
This is 1950s television, yes.
But no, I think we'll probably settle down now, and you'll still get your tart with the heart and all that sort of stuff.
But it'll be a return to family values for soaps.
There will be a return, and I think also treating people as teenagers as adults instead of looking down on them. Writers did tend to write them as kids, and it was crazy, you know, because they run rings around us. And I mean, if ever you've had to do anything on a computer and you bring a 5-year-old kid in, I mean, he makes you look like an idiot.
So chasing the experience.
It's terrible. It's terrifying. And all that's going to happen. I think we've got to start looking at that these kids have an ability that grown-ups will never have anymore because we're too old.
Now, Reg, I know you're over here working on a new project which might involve a Reg Watson British soap appearing on our screens. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
Not a thing.
Really, no ideas I can nick?
You've nicked enough already. I can see you setting your own drama series up. Now, we're working on a pilot at the moment, and for Central, and that'll be done in the next 2 weeks, and until they see it, I don't want to talk about it.
Presumably it won't be full of abortions and drug addicts and alcoholics.
Good idea. No, they'll look at it and they'll say, this is a load of rubbish, go back to Australia and shut up. You know. Or they'll say, come over and we'll look at it again, you know, which would be lovely.
Thanks very much, Reg. We can hold it there for a sec. That was excellent, Reg. Fabulous.
Is that enough?
Oh,
God.
I've got your autobiography there.
I want you to stay forever.
Is there anything you'd like to...
Well, a couple of things, if you could bear it.